This week on Reproductive Rebel, we are talking about something quietly revolutionary: money. I'm joined by financial planning expert Nancy Griffin for a conversation we called Women, Wealth, and Worth, a deep dive into the rising tide of women's wealth and the steps we can take right now to build security, sovereignty, and a future we actually feel safe inside. If you've ever been behind, overwhelmed, or disconnected from your financial life, this episode is your permission slip to come home to clarity. No shame, no jargon, just truth and tools you were never given. Tune in and reclaim the resources your lineage has been waiting for. Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an East Asian medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women to live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your health, offering holistic solutions for a symptom-free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are. I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show. Welcome back to another episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. I am joined today by Nancy Griffin. Welcome to the show, Nancy.
Thank you so much, Adrienne. I'm delighted to be here.
I'm so excited to have Nancy on the show. We had a screening call, and the brilliance that this woman is offering has stuck in my head ever since then. And I'm so excited to share her and her story with you today. So if you would like to start by introducing yourself and tell people who you are and what you do.
Okay. Thank you, Adrienne. I'm delighted to. My business is called Women, Worth, and Wellness, and it focuses on women's health and wealth, net worth and self-worth, philanthropy and legacy planning, and very much a holistic brand, because when I created this now 31 years ago, we focused on charitable giving. That was part of my offering as a wealth advisor to encourage my clients to get involved with charitable giving. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. But here we are 30 plus years later, where women's wealth has increased considerably. And now women are starting to inherit wealth with a whole lot more to come. So women's power opportunity has now arrived on the doorstep. And so it is the huge opportunity that we've been waiting for. And now it's like, oh my goodness, what do I do? What do I do? How do I deal with this? So I was recruited into the wealth advisory business. And once I got there, I was sorry I hadn't been there 20 years earlier, because it's just a great role for women, really a perfect role for women. And so you work with a great company and they have a great training program and you've got all your licenses and you're all ready to go. And then they say, Nancy, the only thing we don't have for you is any clients. You've got to go find your own clients. And it's like, oh my goodness. I thought the big challenge was to pass all those exams so I'd have all those licenses. Anyway, the piece of advice they gave was you should choose clients with whom you will add value to their lives over a long period of time. And so I thought, okay, well, I'd already been a few challenges myself as a woman. And I thought I will focus on women, not exclusively, but primarily. And so that is exactly what I did. So this one investment company that I was working with, they had a whole marketing program directed towards women. So there it was, ready to go. All I had to do was pick a location and promote it. And of course, over 150 women showed up, which was amazing. It was at a golf course. It was the beginning of November, which I think is a really sweet spot for hosting an event, because summer's over, kids are back to school. It isn't really full on holiday season yet. So now I've got all these prospects, which is wonderful. So I started to meet with them one at a time and found that these women, oh my goodness, had a disproportionate amount of responsibility for health and wellness of their families. it was like every mom is expected to be a nurse practitioner. And I thought, I knew the routine myself from my own family, but I thought, how much does anybody know about health-related issues?
Mhm.
So in Toronto, which was where I was at the time, we have a wonderful hospital called Women's College Hospital, over 100 years old, and it's all about women's health and wellness. So I initially started hosting events with them, and I would charge my clients and their friends a nominal amount, $25 or $50. So you're starting to introduce how charitable giving enhances your net worth because it's a tax deduction.
Mhm.
And so did all sorts of different events. We know the leading cause of death for women is heart and stroke. And so I did an event with heart and stroke. So women are starting to learn about the different symptoms for heart disease from women versus men. And actually, my own mother died at the age of 83 in the middle of the night. She'd been with her doctor, a female doctor, the day before, and she had been diagnosed with indigestion, which is a common misdiagnosis.
Wow.
So I think to your listeners, heart and stroke is a real topic of interest that everybody should pay attention to, women in particular, because the symptoms are quite different. And so on I went, doing all sorts of different events with different health-related organizations focusing on women's health, because not only were my clients increasing their awareness, they now had contacts to whom they could reach out to if they had questions.
I love that. I love that. What a brilliant concept of being able to marry the safety and financial security of somebody's future with the wellness and how much vitality they have in their future.
Correct. And what's really interesting, my mother that I just referenced, she was the one, her words were ringing loud and clear in my mind because she would say, if you don't have your health, dear, you don't have anything. Like this simple little statement. And so as I started to work with these clients on their wealth plan, I realized if you don't have your health, you're not going anywhere anytime soon. So we got to back this up and focus on health first. And if you're healthy, you want to make sure you stay healthy.
Mhm.
Then if your family is healthy, how do I keep my family healthy? And we know these days that it's very difficult to access healthcare services that perhaps we had 15 years ago, 20 years ago. So we can't afford to be sick. So health is the AAA1 first priority. And then, of course, you work on putting your health plan together. But in putting your health plan together, working with a fabulous advisor, you want to make sure that wealth advisor has anticipated health-related challenges so that it isn't just about investments only. What happens if you have a critical illness or a disability or a premature death? That wealth advisor will ask you those what-if questions and make sure that your total wealth plan is a holistic plan.
Oh, that's so important. And at least here in the United States, one of the biggest problems is people are dying intestate.
Yeah.
So they don't have a will, they don't have a financial plan. I know all of this. This may sound weird. The Reproductive Rebel actually worked in charitable giving at one point in her life. So Nancy's speaking my language. I worked in gift planning, which is estate planning. How do you use a bequest to give to an organization that is meaningful to you, or how you can use certain kinds of investment tools to actually spin out income for you, but a gift for the organization. So I lived and breathed what you're talking about for a large number of years. And one of the biggest things that was always driven home is like, people don't do any planning around this part of their life because it's like they're afraid if they talk about it, they're going to manifest it in.
Exactly. I'm not going to do a will because then I'll die. I don't want to die. And it's like, oh my goodness, this is not good. This is not smart. And women are smart. Women know better. And so really pay attention to it. I'll tell you a little story, which I thought was really interesting. This is a friend of mine who was a trustee for a minor. And so, of course, this minor was turning 18. So it was time for him to turn over the responsibility of managing that portfolio. So takes the 18-year-old, meets with the wealth advisor, And the wealth advisor says to the 18-year-old, I've been looking after this portfolio, obviously with the trustee. Now I will be working directly with you. And he said, I have two requirements. One is that you have a current will, and the second is that you have an accountant. So here we are talking to an 18-year-old about the possibility of dying prematurely. I mean, that is so powerful. But then every young person is primarily expected to do community service to get their credits. So that wealth advisor would say, well, in the event that something did happen, where would you like to direct those proceeds? So having that conversation with an 18-year-old is really shocking, but so important.
Well, and if we normalize it earlier on in people's lives,
Yes.
like I love the fact that this 18-year-old is having that conversation. I have tried to normalize these conversations in my own household. And my daughter says things like, I don't want to talk about you not being alive, Mom. And I'm just like, well, I don't plan on kicking it anytime soon, kid. But like, you need to know these things and you need to know where to find information, because that's a big thing too. Like, I can't tell you the number of women, not only that I've seen in my practice, but just seen in my life growing up. You know, my male side of the family, okay, whether it was an uncle or a grandparent or whatever, leaves their female partner behind. And they go, I don't even know what, like, he always paid all the bills.
I know, crazy, ridiculous. Well,
it's so common.
I'll give you another example.
Before we go deeper into this, if you're listening and thinking, I want more of this kind of conversation, the Rebel Frequency Inner Circle is where we continue in. It's a private space with one bonus episode each month, plus small practices and a community of women doing this work in real life. You can join us through the link in the show notes. All right, back to the show.
This is the importance of beneficiary designation. And again, your wealth advisor, as he or she works with you, should constantly, when you have that annual review or 6-month review, confirm that your beneficiary designations are still the same. This was a young male who got the message about saving for retirement in Canada. So in Canada, it's RSPs. In the US, it's 401k. And so he started a small RSP and, of course, wasn't married. So his beneficiary was his mother. Well, of course, all the way along, he keeps adding to this RSP. Nobody ever asked him about the beneficiary designation. Of course, he gets married, has a couple of kids. He dies. His mother's still alive. She gets the proceeds, and his wife sued the mother-in-law. But you can't override that. You can't override it. And so that's why it's something as simple as your beneficiary designation, again, is something to really pay attention to. And it's not rocket science. It's just understanding the importance of why you do have beneficiaries and that those beneficiaries may change from time to time.
Yes. And I don't know if it's called the same thing in Canada, but there are things like an island that can be set up so that if your kids, you know, there isn't a surviving family member for them to go to, and they have gone to someone who has been designated to take care of them. Maybe it is a friend rather than a family member, for example, that there can be documents put in place to make sure that when you do pass, those funds, if they're under 18, go specifically to the care of your children if they aren't in like a family situation or something like that. And it's so important to know how these documents flow because like my husband and I have a 30-year life insurance plan. We also have investments, you know, and I have been on him. I'm just like, have we updated our beneficiaries? Like we just had another baby. We need to reevaluate what we have for life insurance and expenditures and who's going to take care of everybody when and if, and, you know, that type of thing. Like when we look at wellness, Okay. And this is one of the reasons I was so excited that Nancy reached out to me is wellness isn't just your physical
No.
day to day. Wellness is your financial security.
Right.
Wellness is your ability to sleep at night knowing that you are cared for and those around of you are cared for if the sudden and unexpected should arise.
Correct. And if none of those challenging moments does arrive sooner rather than later, you're still going to live a long life with everything in place the way you wanted it to be. And one other thing, and Adrian, you would know this, is most people buy life insurance to replace income in the event that something would happen. However, often when people get to be 60 or 70, they say, I don't need my income replaced anymore. I'm in good order. I've got all my retirement income in place. And why am I paying for this life insurance? Or why am I even keeping it? But that is exactly when you say, you know what? I'm going to direct this philanthropically. Because when you direct it to a charity and you die, your final tax return has that as a tax deduction. So extremely powerful. So never, ever let your life insurance go without looking at other options you might think about. I had one client, he had so much life insurance and he kept saying, Nancy, are you sure? And I said, look, don't you cancel one thing. And if I think you're going to, I'm going to call your kids and I'm going to sick them on you. And he had, his wife died of brain cancer and he'd had prostate cancer. And he was one of those lovely people who was so appreciative of all the care he got. All you have to do is just redirect it. And the impact is so, so positive. So positive.
Well, and it's funny too, because people don't realize like how much they're worth when they pass. Like it really boggles my brain sometimes when people start adding things up with a wealth advisor and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm a millionaire.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah, because like your house has value, your life insurance holds value, your investment portfolio holds value, the death benefits hold value, depending on the kind of life insurance that you have. Like, I mean, it adds up. And so all of these things are critically important. And honestly, diversify.
Right.
Because then if any one thing starts to wobble, and I say this in our current global economy, you have some assurances that your plan for the future is going to still grow.
Right.
And you're going to be able to provide for also something, I don't know if they have this in Canada also, but like this idea of the revocable living trust.
Yes.
I think that is something that a lot of people don't know about that they should, because that makes passing your assets to your children significantly easier as well.
Exactly.
Talk about that a little bit.
Now, your clients or your listeners will wonder, how in the world am I going to learn about all this stuff? I'm a certified financial planner. And what you can do is just Google CFP near me and meet with that person and ask that person a whole raft of questions. Even if you're already working with somebody, get a second opinion, because that person may know about things that your current advisor has not brought to your attention, or you haven't had that discussion. But this is what women must do, is really reach out and educate yourself and know that you are worthy of asking the questions and getting answers to the questions that you need answers to.
I love
really
that.
Important.
It is so important. And I'm so glad that you said that, because I mean, the grief of a loved one passing is hard enough in and of itself. But if you don't understand what you have for things in front of you and you don't know where to go to get those answers when that time comes, my mother-in-law is dealing with that right now. And she didn't know how to locate some of the paperwork that she needed for things that they had in the household, and found herself in an ownership situation where she's like, oh, wow, now what do I do?
Right.
So knowing how everything works and who you can go to for that information is incredibly important.
And often, Adrian, couples won't talk about this at home, or families won't talk about it at home. But if you as a couple go and meet with that wealth advisor, then you can ask questions back and forth in front of one another. And that then becomes the way of both of you learning and understanding what in the world's going on and how you can be knowledgeable about what to prepare for going forward. I emphasize this because on a couple of podcasts, things go wrong. People get married and 20 years later, things have gone off the rails. And I said, well, the most important thing is when you first meet one another, you have a lot of conversation before you decide to commit yourselves to one another. And then often you go off in different directions. And that's sometimes when things go off the rails. And the one thing we talked about was a line of credit, that making sure that both signatures are required if there's any withdrawal coming from that. So that then reduces everybody's vulnerability. You never want to break a trust, and you never want to mistrust anybody. So that's why you having these conversations together in front of one another with a professional heads off a lot of that.
So if you were to make a recommendation to people listening about, they have Googled, they have found their CFP that is near them, what would you recommend they go into with information for that first visit?
Well, book an appointment and be prepared for that person to ask you a lot of personal questions, because they can't do their job well unless they get a handle on exactly who you are. But in doing so, you've got questions too. You need to, before you're going to disclose a whole pile of information about yourself, you need to know who this person is. What are your credentials? What is your experience? What are some of the client successes that you've had? Don't need to know them by name. Don't even know the amounts. But it gives you an idea of what that person's attitude is towards serving their clients exceptionally well. It's like a dance. Like, you don't just learn the dance immediately. It's a whole lot of dialogue back and forth and back and forth. But if you decide to work with this person, the most important thing for them is that they have to know their client. They've got to ask you a ton of questions. Otherwise, their registration is at risk if they've recommended something that doesn't match up with who you are. They can lose their licenses and be out of business. Same thing, obviously, when you go to a new doctor. When you go to a new doctor, they have a conversation, but then shortly thereafter, they want to do blood work because they want to get a handle on exactly who you are. But, it depends on the whole thing. It depends on what your situation is. Saving for retirement, children's education, insurance, critical illness, disability, estate plan. What does that person recommend? All those things. Ask away whatever you want to ask, but make sure you ask and make sure you get those questions answered, and make sure you've got a level of confidence that you can trust this person to serve you exceptionally well.
Awesome. That's wonderful. So if you were to leave our listeners with a final thought, what would that be?
Simply that you are the number one asset. And often women focus on everybody else and take themselves for granted. So don't do that, girls. Stop. Make yourself the priority. I'm the priority. You are worthy. You are worthy of focusing on yourself first. How healthy am I? How can I enhance my current health? How wealthy am I? How much do I understand what my overall wealth plan is? If I don't, what else do I need to do? And it's basically, you're the asset. Look after yourself and own your own life, period.
I love that. That's so beautifully said. So if people are looking to reach out to you and get in touch with you for services, how can they best reach you?
Send me an email, then you'll go into our database, and then you'll hear what we're up to. Then ask me anything you want to ask me. I'm 24/7. If I don't get to you the night before, the next morning. But it's Nancy, Nancy, at womenworthwellness.com. So Nancy at womenworthwellness.com. Just send me a quick email and say, hi, Nancy, how's it going? What's new in your world? Happy holidays, whatever. And then we can keep in touch.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing this really important information with our listeners. So the moral of the story, guys, get a handle on your financials, where you're currently at, where you want to be, what do you have for coverages? Maybe you haven't even thought about that yet, so that you are prepared for some of these conversations that you could have with a financial planner, and really set yourself up and your family up for success.
Make it a priority. Definitely. You'll be very proud of yourself when you do. You really will be very proud of yourself.
I love that. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Nancy, and sharing your expertise with everybody.
You're welcome, Adrienne. Keep up all your great work.
Thank you. And until next time, everybody. If you're listening to this and feel like there's still something here for you, like the conversation isn't quite finished in your body yet, that's exactly why I created the Rebel Frequency Inner Circle. It's a private space where we go deeper with one bonus episode each month, small ritual practices, and a community of women who are actually living this work. It's just $5 a month. You can join through the link in the show notes. Come stay in the conversation.